Fenley and Jason, what are some of the skills and qualities you would pinpoint are crucial?
In our book, we actually included a list of key takeaways at the end of every chapter. We found that some persistent themes, including, for that matter, taking risks and persistence, and some of the other things that have been mentioned so far. A few notable examples that we found were often repeated were being authentic, to accept and learn from no's, and to realize that there's a feedback process to entrepreneurship, to develop soft skills and learn to network. There were countless really takeaways, but those were a few that we found were very common and that we saw time and time again as important aspects of entrepreneurship.
And I'll just jump in really quickly. I know as Simon, Ramah, and Finley have mentioned already, everyone starts from a different point and everyone has their own journey. It's not a linear progression, right? You're going to have your ups and downs, and being able to work through your low points is one of the biggest things that separates entrepreneurs from people that just want to have a stable 9 to 5, right?
Couldn't agree more. And it's, I think, a fascinating question to think about how we build grit and delayed gratification in a world where we're surrounded by instant gratification. And I think that's the biggest challenge I see for young minds who are growing up in that world to come into entrepreneurship and work at something for 5, 7, 10 plus years until they reap the benefits.
I'll jump in there because I just wanted to just come back to a couple of points mentioned, and then I'll mention a story. One thing, Jason, when you were talking about sort of the persistence and the time it takes, there's this great saying that I come across more and more that it took me 10 years to be an overnight success. You only hear, you don't see all the work that's put in all the years beforehand, and all the effort and all the pivoting. You just see suddenly they've made it. That's never it's rare that somebody just straight out of the box it all works. So it does take a lot of time to do these things. You just hear about it at the very end.
Bentley and Jason, any stories that you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to share the story of Tara Bosch, one of the people we interviewed. Tara, when she was a young child, had a self-described unhealthy relationship with candy, which I think that many of us can resonate with. But moreover, that when rather after a talk with her grandmother, rather than deciding to forego candy as something which brought her joy, she instead decided to start a business after developing a method of creating common candies without most of the sugar, and instead using natural sweeteners that were far more healthy. And today she sells her sweets. Her brand is called Smart Sweets in Walmart, Target, Home Goods, all sorts of large retailing companies, in which she's developed different non-sugar alternatives to many common candies, from gummy bears to licorice to so many more types of common brands of candy, in which she has removed 99% of the sugar. And I thought that was an inspirational story, not only because as a fellow member of Gen Z, she was really embodying the principle that we wanted to convey, namely that Gen Z isn't such an entrepreneurial generation, and that we can do it, and that we can become entrepreneurs if we set our mind to doing so. But also that she saw a problem, as you have said, she saw a problem, and rather than coming up with a personal solution to the problem, she asked herself, how can I make it so that this is not a problem for anyone anymore, that this is no longer something which anyone else will encounter. And I think that the fact that she managed to not only do so, but succeed, was something which I at least found inspirational. And really, it embodied a lot of the traits that we wanted to encompass with our book.
That's amazing. And Fenley, did she fundraise, or was it? I'm curious about how she launched this initiative.
Sure. So yes, she did fundraise, and I think that was something that she mentioned, which was a difficult process, but also a rewarding one. Obviously, fundraising is not an easy process, and I think that was something that many of the entrepreneurs said, but having the opportunity to share your idea and to have someone else actually respond to that idea and say, yes, I believe in this and I'm willing to put my money behind that, is such a great feeling. And I think that that was conveyed through her experiences.
Clearly, the most important thing when starting a business is solving a problem. I mean, and it's not just solving any old problem, it's solving a problem that's important enough that customers are willing to pay for. It's not just solving a problem. You've really got to get deep into it's a big headache problem. But in order to do that, and this is Rama's point as well, you've got to be passionate about it. You've got to be passionate. So you've got to find the problem and be passionate about solving it. And that's where Fenley's story really came in, about the candy and about seeing the problem and being passionate about solving it. And I think that is the crux of entrepreneurship in many ways. It's finding a big enough problem people are willing to pay for. It's being passionate, and it's being passionate about solving it. So I love that story, Fenley. That really sums up to me entrepreneurship.
Simon, I absolutely love that you kind of like summarize it all. And I think I do have a story that kind of builds off of that. So, I mean, we interviewed many entrepreneurs, but one that really stuck out to me was Aaron Rasmussen, who is the CEO of Outlier, which is an education company, but also a co-founder of Masterclass. So you can see kind of like a theme of he really loves education. So this person, though, he didn't really have the best kind of run through with education. And as someone who had a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Sciences, you would think that they'd be, oh, I love this and I'd love to promote it. Instead, he took a different route. I mean, through innovating, he tried game development, even making iPhone accessories and energy drinks, just constantly innovating and trying to envision something. So, I mean, he eventually got to the topic of education, where he was like, I think I can really fix this and provide an experience for people like me who didn't really enjoy, the brick and mortar, the traditional path. So I think that if you truly believe and you and your idea is like ride or die, right? You're ready to take this to the ends of the earth. If it really matters to you, you have to keep trying, because in the end, you're really, betting on yourself and the idea that you can really make a positive impact. So I honestly really love the point that you made about just having that passion, because that's what really separates entrepreneurs and people who just want to have like solid continue linear progression. So I think that that's a experience that really stuck out to me.
So my question to you all is, what are some ways that young entrepreneurs especially can start to build their network? What strategies can they deploy? Maybe just to mix it up, Jason, we'll start with you.
I mean, networking is something that almost every single person of the people we interviewed said was key to their success. I mean, some of them established their networks in college or graduate school. Others were part of accelerators or programs. Age is really no longer a factor. And there are plenty of examples of Generation Z and Generation Alpha entrepreneurs who are getting their start now. So, I mean, the real question is when you're ready.
So adding on to what Jason said, I think that in a lot of ways, a key takeaway that we found from the book is that there's not one magic piece of advice, a thing that you have to do to become a good entrepreneur, but instead that is really about, as Jason said, cultivating that really lifestyle of entrepreneurship. And also, I think that a large component of it is, as was mentioned earlier, commitment and resilience, in that it is not so much that you have to start a business today, but what I think you do have to do is to start practicing the skills and to start thinking about entrepreneurship and innovating and brainstorming and coming up with ideas of what you could do to what problem you want to solve. And I think that by doing that, by creating connections, by networking, but also by just developing a sense of what you want to do, that you can really make it so that once you actually do come up with the idea where you're like, this is it, this is the business I want to start, that you can take that from there much more easily if you've already taken the time to develop some of the skills and really some of the experience by that point. That's what makes starting early so important, that if you have a passion for entrepreneurship, it's important to give that passion an outlet. And oftentimes that can mean failure to start, like with every entrepreneur. But as you incorporate feedback and incorporate what you learn from those failures, I think that is a crucial element of success.
If there's one piece of advice you could give aspiring entrepreneurs, what would it be and why?
Don't wait for anyone to give you permission. You should start now.
A central premise, I think, of our book was that you're never too young to start becoming an entrepreneur, and that it is something which someone of any age can do. And I think that was really central to what we were trying to convey. And so if there's one principle that I would want to leave people with, it's that there's no requirement to start being an entrepreneur. You can just do it. You can just start now, and you should start now, and that there's no barrier to entry in that regard.
Make sure to follow our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and check us out at down2biz.net.